welcome everyone to today's Get Hired in Germany session. My name is Sarah Rapsch. I'm leading the career service at the EU Business School here in Munich, and it's my pleasure to be your host for today to what is the second session in the series. And this time we will have a very practical focus on how to land a job and start a career in Germany. And we have two great HR experts today giving you first-hand advice. It's Ariane Mertens from Bosch Building Technologies, which is a leading global supplier of state-of-the-art technology and services. It's great having you here, Ariane.
Thank you so much for the invite.
And then we have Ralf Plass from Michael Page, one of the world's leading professional recruitment consultancies, which operate in more than 36 countries around the world. So welcome to you as well, Ralf.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
And before I introduce our guest to you and we start into a session, I would like to share some technical aspects of today. And I start with a huge number because we had more than 550 registrations from all over the world today, which is in some 65 different nationalities. So it's amazing. We have India, Pakistan, Indonesia, Russia, Albania, Nigeria, South Africa, Spain, Germany. So from all over the world, really. So a big hello to all of you. It's a pleasure and great having you here and joining us today. And we want this to be a very practical and useful session for you. So please make use of the Q&A section below. You will see the button at the bottom. So ask all your questions. And given the large number of attendees, we will select questions that there are some lovely colleagues from the EU Business School in the background. They will answer some of your questions. And then we'll also select some that we will ask to our experts during the panel. So feel free to really drop everything so to make most use out of this session for you. And we will be recording the session to make it available to you afterwards. So you can re-listen to it and, as you don't want to miss out on this very valuable content. And yet it is worth staying and being here in person, because at the end we will raffle. So you can stand a chance to win a professional CV review. So we will choose two lucky winners that from the participants that are here that will get individual feedback on their CVs from our two lovely guests and experts today. And also to encourage you to really ask your questions. I have an extra goodie for you, and we will select a third winner. And that one will get a 30 minutes career consultation with me. So you really have, a great experience here with a lot of practical advice and a lot of chances to get even first-hand review of your own careers. So yes, that was the introduction. So let's get started, and let me introduce to you our experts for today. Ladies first. So we start with Ariane Mertens. She is an international human resource professional and works with Bosch Building Technologies, as I said already. And after joining Bosch through her fast-track leadership program, she has worked for close to a decade in all facets related to human resources, talent acquisition and talent development. She was an HR business partner for all kinds of activities, also has done HR, IT, and transformation projects. Has quite a wide range into the field. And her work also took her to India for an international assignment. Has worked with all kinds of teams there, has met her husband, who is an Indian as well. So we have quite an international bond here. And she is passionate about people development, diversity, and design thinking. And currently lives in Munich. Like us here, we have today a Munich round. So I'm very, very happy to have you here, Ariane. Thanks for joining.
Thank you for the nice introduction.
Well, you made it easy. You made it easy. And then let me just shortly introduce Ralf, and then we jump into the questions. So Ralf Plass, you work at Michael Page as a consultant. Your focus is finance and accounting. So you're recruiting in that area. And you were also born and live in Munich. You're married to a Japanese. So we have a lot of Eastern connections here. And father of two kids. Oh, yes, Ariane is also a mother of one baby girl. And Ralf, you started sports management and joined a startup company. So you got more of this entrepreneurial start into your career. And then, interestingly enough, you really started in this field of sports, and then joined also afterwards a manufacturing company for fitness equipment. And then you decided to change careers. So this is possible, you know, with the right attitude and passion and people skills probably as well. And you now love working at Michael Page, as your passion is to provide new opportunities to people that actually push their careers to new heights. So thanks for joining here and pushing our participants to a new height.
Thank you very much. So great
so
introduction.
I'm giving my best. So let's start with ladies first again. And Ariane, because you were saying that you worked in India and obviously have a huge experience here in Germany, I would really be interested in what you see are the cultural aspects and differences from your personal experience between these two countries.
Oh, I think there are so many of them. So really the Indian and the German culture, they are so different. And at the same time, all of the cultures obviously have so many facets and aspects which are so enriching. So what my experience is that you come to a country and you have your pattern in your head, like how work works basically, and then in the beginning you're just shocked because other people work in another way, and of course you also have that in your usual context, but then in a country you are like the outsider. So my experience in India was in a way that in the beginning it was very hard for me to get equipped with the right tool set, let's say. And in the end of my 6 months stay there, I had the feeling like, okay, now I know how everything is working and I can finally start like really performing. And then I already had to leave. But I think, again, it was more like me thinking that way, and probably it was all right, yeah. But it showed me again and how important it is to always switch these perspectives.
I love it. Thank you very much. It's really what I heard is also like to emerge into another country, really, right? To sort of like open up, to just be open to that experience that enriches you.
Totally, because you can get stuck at that phase where you are saying, but this is not right, how to do this and la la la. And this is also very typical for German culture. We like to complain. Yeah. So, and the really key factor is to look past that and to come past that stage, and then to really find the performance in that new culture, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, we always say that to our students as well, that sort of like, I mean, they come here to study with us to sort of like emerge into that experience and then really mingle and do internships and stuff with companies to really go more into the heart of it.
Yes, I can totally recommend that. Yeah.
Thank you. And Ralph, would be interesting from your point of view, like more probably because a lot of people we have also that come to do an MBA with us, so probably had like an engineering background and now move more into like business topics. And as you also like are a career changer, I will call that. What would be your advice or probably your view on it, on experiences? What tips can you give people that sort of like think about moving into a bit of a different field?
Moving into a different field, yeah. I mean, coming here in general is definitely interesting. As you mentioned already, we're a bit of a very sometimes strict follow our rules country, but I think younger generations changing that a little bit now, and moving into different fields here can be tricky. But I think you just said the right word. It's if you're in the beginning of your career, internships and getting the feeling of companies here, small ones, bigger ones, corporate level, having internships is very valuable, I think. And that's what we always see here, to get the feeling already and get your hands-on experience. I think that's key.
And what sort of benefits would you see, like, because to have this German experience, what do you think makes it special? I mean, we're obviously a very strong economy in Europe. It's quite a developed country, definitely. But would be interesting to see your point. What do you think is the benefit of studying / working here?
I think the benefit is that you have usually a pretty good surrounding, basically. You just mentioned that the economy is great here, no lie, and I think that creates many opportunities, and we can really take the chance even for. I mean, Ariane probably can can back that up, that we have a lack of experts here, right? So we really need that young, fresh, great educated people here, right? And it's a really good chance to come here and get. And the benefit is, I think, having this very strict environment that is at the same time professional. I assume in most cases, but I think that can also be like a very new point of view for many people, especially coming from far east, far west, wherever it is different here. I guess it's very rule based, and then all those kind of things, and those little between the lines stuff that happens.
Would you agree with that, Ariane? What would be your view?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I feel we should also mention that German culture can also be fun. We're not just rules and complaining. No, but you're absolutely right. I mean, the thing is, what are you planning for your life? You know, if you want a local job in your country and you have great opportunities there, no, you don't need to come to Germany. It's very easy. But if you're saying, hey, I can imagine, for example, to work in Germany later on, then obviously it's a big benefit to also do the MBA here, or to study here, to do internships here, to build up your network here, to learn the language. It's a great benefit. Or if you're saying, I don't know if I want to work in Germany, but I want to have that international experience because I will learn from it a lot, then I can also just emphasize that. That is definitely the case. So I think what the studying and what the internships do is, besides all of the things like you learn about the cultural context and how to work in that country, is also the network you have. I mean, when I look at my fellow students, or I was very active in a student organization, when I look at them now after 10 years of coming out of university, in which kind of companies they are, that is a great network, and you should use that.
Definitely, yeah. The power of network there is great. And as we're seeing today with the 65 nationalities here, we also have a very international campus. So it's always a great experience that you not only get the German sort of like side of working, but also like this international mindset, which I think is very important nowadays. No, I think, how do you guys see it, like the international aspect of companies nowadays?
Absolutely. I mean, Bosch is a international company for the past 120 years. Yeah, we have a 130-year history, and we are in all the countries in the world, basically, with 400,000 employees worldwide. So yes, and every aspect. And I noticed that very often, that things are designed in a way that one mind works, and if I ask someone else, then that person can add to it. And it is so much better if we are adding different perspectives to it, be it men and women, be it old people, young people, but also the different cultures and different nationalities. Everything is just getting better with that. It's also getting more complicated, let's be honest. So there are intercultural competencies, and that means to go to that level of understanding. But if you acquire something like this can be super beneficial for your career.
Yeah,
I totally agree. Sorry to interrupt.
No, definitely. I mean, let's stop, because I like that you sort of like see it really as a career path, right? And like, how do you address it? So it would be probably interesting when people are still young, or even if they're like already started their career, what would be the important questions to ask yourself to plan a career, like to have a good career path? What do you think? What would be useful there to ask yourself?
Maybe if I'll take a chance here, I would say you have to have an idea in the beginning in which direction roughly should go, because compared to other countries now, where you can switch even totally different areas of work. If you go from sales to marketing, you go from a totally different area, that can be tricky here. You have the chance to switch it in certain cases if you have special qualities that you bring. I mean, you mentioned myself. I'm coming from a very sales-oriented background in the sports-related area. Now I'm in the consulting area for HR topics, kind of, which is different. But for me itself, it seemed like the personal skill I had there was just good, and it matched. But in general, comparing it, to other countries. I think you have to have a idea in which direction you're focusing. And that's why, again, those internships, those MBA studies abroad, I think they give you a great foundation. You should always consider that, I think.
Absolutely agreed. And I think what is important, don't plan your career, plan your life. Like, what is important for you in life? Is it to spend a lot of time with family and not to be concerned that much with the job? Then I will definitely take another career. Then if I say, you know, my job should bring me anywhere in the world and I want to travel a lot. Or if, for example, that you mentioned the sales, right, Ralf, that is something which is so different. Some people say, oh my God, no, I could never like talk to a person and sell him or her something. And other people, they find that challenge and they get that spark in their eyes. So I'm really advising you to plan out your life. What are the other priorities there? And then, like you mentioned, like to identify a field where really that sparkling comes into your eyes, you know, where people are telling you, you are great at this or that, or where you also feel the fun and the flow status when you're doing activities. And then to build up on this, what I've said about the internships, building the network, getting first jobs in that field, and then moving on with that.
Thank you very much. I like the sparkling in your eyes. Yeah, because it's like you say that sort of like follow where your energy goes or where your joy goes as well, right? And that holds so much true also for business life. And we've talked so much. I mean, I think we've probably the word that we've said most so far was the word internship. So I think a lot of I've already seen some questions from the audience popping up around because there were some questions around what if someone has no experience. So, you know, because internships are in theory there to get you work experience, but very often it's the case that they rather take someone who already has working experience. So there's a bit of this tension, and there were some questions to how to land an internship if you don't have experience yet.
I would say that's 50-50, to be honest. Yes, we do have those companies. They're very specific in what they do usually. So they need those backgrounds already beforehand. But I also think it's really, I've luckily many companies that are really open to just good candidates, say like this, no? They say like, hey, wow, he has a good education in this and that, and he's interested in like those and those areas, so like all those things, yeah, where you can see someone, okay, smart person, that's what I want. So hard to tell. But I think you definitely can take your chances here without having experience in a certain area.
I agree that motivation is so much more important than skill, because I can train skill, I can't train motivation. You need to be motivated for a certain topic. So my approach to that, if I don't have experience, my approach would be to try to find out who is offering that internship and to call up that person and really make clear, why am I the perfect person, even though it might not show in my CV. But I'm super motivated because this topic is super interesting and I have seen this in my studies and so on and so forth. So you build a storyline basically around your motivation. And of course, you should also mention that you're willing to learn all of the things that are required in the internship itself or in the description. And I think then it's up to the luck, probably what Ralf mentioned. Then it's a 50-50 chance. Maybe you meet someone who's very open to it and says, okay, you know, actually, why not? I will invite you for an interview. And maybe you're not lucky that day. Don't take that rejection personally, because what I have seen now from 10 years of recruiting experience, sometimes you are just unlucky because there is a candidate who just fits perfectly, and then yes, you will not be able to get that internship. That does not mean anything about your profile or your personality. It's just life, and then this was not your niche, you know, and maybe you should change your search a little bit or try to find other opportunities. But I'm sure it will work out. You just need to be hard working for it. If it doesn't work out in the first possibility, or the first thing doesn't work out, then I'm sure other things will work out.
Definitely. I love it that you say like this perseverance in a way, right? That's sort of like,
yes,
sometimes you have to work hard for it. That's just like how life is. And sometimes you're lucky at the first shot, but still, like, do not give up is something that I also always say to my students as well. And another probably, if I might add, is especially when you don't have work experience, you can really and correct me if I'm wrong here, but like balance it out also with extracurricular activities. So you talked about motivation, so show that you're interested. So, you know, we also have projects here in the university, things like this, where people can sort of like add projects and achievements and these sort of things. So I think there are many options also outside the typical work experience. And that would be interesting to hear from you guys, because we have a lot of students that come with volunteering experience, for example. How do you value these in a CV?
Oh, I really want to answer that because this is basically my life story. You know, I studied psychology and I was so involved in ISEC, which is like a student organization, which is a platform for people to do international internships, to organize projects, to take over leadership experience. And jokingly, I said that I did that like as a main job, and I studied, you know, next to it because I was so involved in it and I learned so much. And I was so involved because I learned so much, you know. And my entry into Bosch was because of that, because I could say, listen, I know I'm a student, I'm 24 years old, but I gained that leadership experience here. I had international experience because with ISEC, I traveled to India and with an internship, you know, for 6 months and so on. So different possibilities. So yes, extracurricular activities by all means. You know, it's very important when you're putting this in your CV to ask yourself, what did I learn from this? And to also put this in your CV in a way that an outsider can understand it. Because sometimes I see this in CVs where somebody's writing something about a project and I'm like, okay, what does that mean? You know, if you want to tell me you gained leadership experience with that, then say that, you know. But if you put this clearly, I'm absolutely pro.
I can only agree. I can only agree. I mean, everything extra on top is nice to have, right? But as Ariane said, it's really important that you display it the right way. That's another topic probably we were coming later to, but it's really helpful to make it obvious and to be yeah, as you mentioned, and show your motivation. I think that was really a key word from Ariane. And I'm always a person, I like to just pick up the phone, even though if it's difficult. Of course, it's a big hurdle to do it as a foreigner in a different country when you apply for internship. But at the same time, I think many people appreciate it still. If you just pick up the phone, it's like, hey, my application, what do you think? I'm like motivated because this, and this. I think that is really also big plus if you can do that. Yeah, it's not for everyone though, of course, but if you have the chance, take it.
Yeah, to think outside the box here and there. Yeah. You know? Nowadays you have social media channels and stuff to just really, I think, you know, just as we said before, with the perseverance, right? So if you want it, to just find, to be flexible. And but I see that very often, and it would be interesting probably for you, Ariane, to ask. I see a lot of students coming here that want to be at one of the big names like BMW or whatever. What, or probably Ralf, as you work as a Michael Page and you have all sorts of customers, like clients, which are like different companies, would be interesting to see like what would be the benefit probably to go to a company which is a bit doesn't have probably the big name. Are they overlooked? What would be benefits there? What do you think?
The benefits from smaller companies or those hidden champions are that you just get more exposure. I mean, it's always nice to have that background and that big companies, BMW, Bosch, and you definitely can have great careers there. You probably learn more in shorter terms if you go to a smaller company, of course. The exposure is there. You can look into this area, into this division here and there. So I think it's a major plus. Of course, it's really, it goes back to Ariane a little bit. Now, how do you plan your career? Are you the one who says, okay, I'll be CFO in 10 years? Maybe you go for the Bosch BMW route and try this. Can be easier, but at the same time, if you have a good, nice company that is really a expert in its area, and you have good start there and have many experiences that can also be beneficial. So I think it's a bit about the planning factor, where you really want to go.
And Ariane, because we talked about like the land, like getting internships and stuff. Probably you can share with us currently in Bosch is one of those big ones, and then later we probably have a bit of a look into smaller companies. But as Bosch, what are you looking for in candidates? So what opportunities probably exist for students? What's the process? Probably take us a bit on that journey.
Sure. Let me do that. So, like I mentioned, we are huge, but we also split into smaller entities. So what Ralf was mentioning about, you have these super big entities, you have smaller, more familiar entities, is also true for the big Bosch group, because we have, of course, subsidiaries. And I think it is really important to think about what we said earlier, like, where do I want to go, and what is important for me? Because if you yourself are clear on that, then you will also transmit that during the application process. So, of course, as Bosch, we have internships, what we mentioned before. You can write your thesis with us, or you can work during your studies a couple of hours a week, which is typically something you would do after an internship. So very often we get to know someone by an internship because they are spending a couple of months with us. And let me say that the longer the better. So 6 months is the maximum you can do, work full-time for us as a student. And this is something, of course, which is preferred. If you only have 2 or 3 months, then this is a little short. I'm not saying it's not working out, but you always have to see that people have to like get every information to you. So obviously, the longer the better. And typically we get to know you by this internship. You perform very well, and then you stay with your department as a working student as long as you are studying, which is a very nice way of also financing your studies. And again, the network character, right? You'll get to know people in the internship or during that working phase. What we also have, and what is a really interesting program, is the so-called pre-master program. So when you have your bachelor degree, you can work for maximum 1 year in a certain department in Bosch. You also see a little bit on the left and right, you see other departments. You stay in touch with that department. You can write your master thesis there, and later on you will have an internal candidate status as soon as you finish your master studies, which is of course super attractive. And that is something which I would also highly recommend, because from a network perspective, again, super program. We have trainee programs, the junior managers program, which I joined with, which is a 2-year program where you have 4 to 6 rotations, 1 international. We have graduate specialist programs. We have, a lot of programs, I would say, but this is like the basic of it. And what is important is that you tell me, why are you the perfect candidate for that position? Because me as a recruiter, if I look through a lot of applications, I don't want to scan 15 pages of a CV. I want to know, why are you the perfect candidate? And if this doesn't come out from your CV itself, then you need to write it to me briefly in a cover letter. Briefly is here also important.
And because I like that you described a lot of, like, there are many opportunities, as you said, like Bosch is a huge company, so there are many entry positions or like opportunities. We had questions from the audience regarding to internships. One more in the direction of, is it necessary to do an internship to get a job? Sort of like, is that the ideal entry route? And the other one is more in the direction of, do internship not automatically, but sort of like increase your chances to get the job there. You've almost answered it already, but probably you can just
yeah, I can just quickly elaborate on it. I think, no, there's no guarantee, and sometimes, and that's again where I'm saying, don't take it personally, sometimes also because we have difficult times. Take the last year, because of the COVID situation, certain areas of our business almost completely shut down for a couple of months before they re-ramped, and we didn't have any entries, or we didn't hire anyone in this time. And of course, it's not your fault then if the internship does not turn out to be a job, but nevertheless, you are increasing your probability. And I would say, is it necessary to get a job? Well, let me put it the other way around. I can hardly remember hiring someone for an entry-level position after his or her studies, and that person did not have a single internship or any other experience. I know, for example, from India, that it was very unusual to do internships during the studies. It was not really known because they have a placement system. But I can only recommend it to you. If you want to start a career in Germany, try to get that exposure in some way, because I would be, very honestly, I would be a little reluctant, because that means all of the working culture, you have never experienced that. And that would just be a starting point. Does not mean that I wouldn't hire you, but if I have a similar profile with someone who already did an internship, I would probably prefer that person.
Thank you. And Ralf, probably towards you, because Ariane, you just mentioned the COVID situation. So probably, as you have a bit of an overview, how would you say is the current situation? So are companies recovering? Are there still are there more jobs coming up? And we had a specific question from the audience, because you are working in finance and accounting. How the job prospects currently are in respect of finance.
Pretty good, I have to say, pretty good. I mean, yes, of course, we're talking about Greater Munich area. Bavaria is doing well in general, so that also helps. But I can tell from my other locations in Germany, it really didn't slow down. We had the COVID situation in March, April last year, and we had of like 2-3 months. Yeah, it was just on hold, basically everything. But after that, it already picked up, and I think it's still a good timing. There's really nothing bad to say about it. Yes, you have, of course, companies that are hit hard, depending on what they're doing, but the big picture is still very good. And finance related, we really have a lack of talents, especially in the younger positions. We really do. So I think there's always a good chance. I can just encourage you to probably at Ariane's table, the applications are piling up already, what you mentioned, for all the programs they have. But yeah, in general, like there are many companies who are looking for good young talents at the moment, definitely.
And as you're already mentioning the finance sector, we had a question, because you come from sports, how the opportunities are in the sports industry. So probably we can just come back to that here now.
Sports industry. Yeah, I still have a lot of contacts there. That really depends. They were hit a bit harder than others here and there. So that really depends on your expertise and where you want to go. Yeah, I was working in the fitness industry. That's not a good area to start now at the moment, for example. But of course, there's always like exceptions. But yeah, sports, maybe be clear what you want and check it out beforehand. But finance is still good.
Very good, very good. Yeah. So let us move, because we already started a bit on like how to apply. So I think that's one of those like core elements is always like your documents, right? We talked about the CV. You've mentioned shortly, Ariane, also like this, the cover letter. So probably let's start first of all. What, from your point of view, would differentiate a good from a bad CV? Let's start generic.
Overview. Sorry.
No, you start. You guys.
You touched on the length, yeah. The length. Okay, then I keep it up from there, and you can add your opinion on that one. I'm a fan of having everything necessary in there, because so many times I hear from candidates, yeah, but I didn't write this in, or I didn't want to add this because then it's more than 2 pages. I was like, yeah, but that was pretty important, I think. So please add it, put it back in. So I'm more, as long as it's transparent and has all the necessary information there that are characteristic for you and that you gained, and that's pretty good. So please add them. I don't know how you see that, Ariane, but
you're absolutely right. I'm just allergic to too much, no prioritization, right? That's what I'm allergic against. So, and that's what I mean. 2 pages, fine. 3, please. Okay. But everything above 4, I'm just like, really? Like, really? Can't you prioritize? Like, isn't there anything? Because it's okay to have a template of your CV, which is maybe 10 pages long, but then I have to ask myself, for that position, are all of these qualifications are so necessary to write about in detail? And then I have to delete stuff or shorten it or whatever so that it fits to that position. That's my experience, but you're absolutely right. It should also not be too short that I don't have any information anymore.
Yeah, I think a basic rule what we always tell the candidates is like, of course, you're talking more about young professionals, so they don't have those steps already in their CV, but we recommend the last 2 steps, 3 maybe, if they're really they say a lot and they really have a strong message. Please, very detailed, and everything before that's a bit in the back. Just make it shorter, if it's not super relevant, of course. But kind of like to give an idea.
And that's so important what you just said, the message, right?
Yeah.
I should ask myself in everything I'm writing, what's the message behind that? Why am I putting this in? I was school champion of blah, blah, blah. Okay, but how does this connect to this position? You know, I should have an answer to that if I would ask myself that.
Yeah.
I think that's true for every document I'm putting into my application. Be it certain certifications or the cover letter or something like that. It should always be from the perspective of the person who is seeing it for the very first time. And now, what do I do with that information? Is it relevant or not?
Yeah. And clear. Have it a clear layout, easy to read. I think that helps a lot in the to make a good first impression.
True. Yeah.
And what would be like, because I mean, you've worked abroad, or you also had like contact with international, obviously. What would be, from your point of view, because the biggest difference between a German CV and a CV probably from the UK or from India or?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it really depends on the culture, because also a CV from UK would look very different, like the one from India or South America and so on. I think really prepare yourself in a way, just Google, like, how do you do a German CV? So, for example, we put pictures in our CV, which is unthinkable, for example, in the US, yeah. But we do that, and this is still a big thing. And if you have a nice picture and not an informal one, not in your bikini or bathing shorts, okay, just like the face and a nice smiling picture, that is something which most people expect. And something like this, you should just know. So just Google it and read about it, and then again find a authentic self, I would say. And if you see that Germans like facts, they don't, and they like it crisp. And so I think that if you look at that, then that's fine. And you have to find, of course, a kind of compromise between your true authentic self and the way you're presenting that. And it's okay if it's a little exotic. It doesn't need to be like the default template of something, but really get your information on this, what your counterpart is expecting.
Great. And when you read, because I mean, I have to now get CVs from all different kinds of companies. Where does your attention go in the document? So what sort of like draws your attention and what puts you off?
I mean, it depends, of course, on the position. No? If you're talking about a higher experience position, high level position, of course, I check the experience and the steps. But as Ariane mentioned, clear message. Itself, the layout, is it easy to read? What I mentioned, that catches my eye. And just from an educational standpoint, yeah, I do look at what did the person study, what did she do, he do in the beginning, what kind of school was she? It's not that important sometimes, but it just gives you an idea about the person a little bit, especially if you're talking about young professionals. And Ariane touched on it earlier again. If you did something special in school, yeah, please write it in there, all the extracurriculums that matter, of course. Please put them in. I'm a fan of more information as long as it's relevant and it's not like overload of things. And I think that's a bit of the German way people think here. So yes, just having it in a very German, nice order, or like starting from the earliest stage and to the current stage. Those kind of things as a rough idea.
Interesting, because I prefer it the other way around, even though you will not find that as a typical German CV, because it's more the American way, I think, also to put stuff which is now to the front. But I actually prefer that because especially for a little older candidates, I don't really care what they did 10 years ago, because I want to know what they're doing now or what was the last 2 positions, as you were mentioning. So, but by that, you can also see it's also personal preference. It's not an exact science. And it could be that however you designed your CV is not the way the HR person or the hiring manager wants to see it. And I think that's why it is so important that you yourself feel fine with that CV and that you have your message there. And if it then didn't hit the taste buds of these people, then so be it. But then maybe that's also not the person you want to work for.
Yeah, it's probably then not the perfect match, right? Because that's one of the things, like, we always consider, like, we have to present to the company, but it's also the other way around. So it's a two-way street. So awesome. Given the time, I would come up with a speed question round. So I'll ask specific questions and we do a bit of a, so you can decide who jumps on the questions. And if the other one, so some of them might be yes or no, and picking up here and there some from the audience as well. And I'll start with, I know in a lot of countries they have references in their CV. So quoting reference in the CV, no, yes. And if so, how?
No, never called anyone.
Yeah, not so relevant here.
Not so relevant. Good. We've already touched on this topic, but now, like, your final answer, how many pages should the perfect CV have?
2, 3? 3 maybe. Range. Max 2 to 3.
Yeah. And I think we're talking about more like young professionals. There shouldn't be more than 3 pages at this point of your career, I guess.
The students probably more towards 1, and then very experienced 2 to 3. Okay. Then one of the questions that I see very often also when I do career consultations is the length of the detail per work experience. So the question is, how much detail should one be there? Like, how many, let's say, bullet points would you expect per work experience, per job?
All that are necessary.
That's a very
just
good
kidding.
one.
Just kidding. No. Like, really, it should describe your position with every important task you had. That is my opinion, and that can be a bit detailed, like I mentioned, like the last 2 steps in your career. They can be pretty detailed. Everything before that, yeah, just roughly to get an idea. That is my idea. And if it's like 5 bullet points that are very, very strong, and you definitely know, okay, the person can do this, and that, that's what I need, then it's fine. If it takes 10, in my opinion, then it's good. But it shouldn't be like 1 page for one step of your career, I think.
Agreed.
So we have Ariane more on the short side and Ralph on the...
Yes, I would say more like, okay, 5 bullet points for the one which is like super important and 3 or so for the other ones. That's mine. Yeah. But I'm also, yeah, as you can see, I'm like, okay, like, give me information I need and nothing else.
Sure.
What I often see as well is like that the current or the last job is a bit longer, and then the further away, the shorter the description gets.
But that's why I said make the one really long, which is necessary, because it could be that the job before the current one is like super important to the one you're applying for, and then I would make this one a little longer in comparison to the one I currently have.
Definitely. The skill section is always a very interesting one. What would be important here from your point of view in the CV?
I mean, obviously language skills is always one topic, coming not from Germany. Depending on the area you want to work in, the specific systems or project skills you bring, what you touched on, those kind of things. Yes, that's what people do want to see here. Ariane, any other skill ideas?
It's really important on what the job ad says, and really just like put your focus on that, because if there's a long description on what kind of systems you need to have, then you should also mention those ones in the CV if you have experience. What I'm not a big fan of is to just write like, okay, and I'm a communication expert and I'm doing this, like all the soft skills, like just mentioning, because you can have that as a small section, but don't overdo it, because usually it's not very authentic that you're an expert in everything.
But on the soft skills, that would be interesting. But so would you recommend to include, because that's sort of like you can highlight on your strengths, or?
I think, yes, it's a recommendation to include it. And there, again, if the job ad, for example, says, we are looking for someone who's very good in communication, then yeah, you should try to also fit that in your description, if this is really your skill set, right? But what I don't like is then if people are putting, let's say, 10 different personality traits and do like a scale of it, and in everything they scale like 90 out of 100 or 100 out of 100 or something like that, because this is like not very realistic, because everybody has strengths and weaknesses, and it's okay to put like the 5-3 main strengths you have in there, but don't overdo it.
And you mentioned to sort of like pick up on the language from the job posting. So should you make sure to include certain buzzwords or certain skills and requirements?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Everything which is in the job profile tells you what they are looking for. This is the only information you have, right? And again, it's about the expectation of the person who's reading it. And so if you're including most of this, then you already have done most of the work, basically.
Yeah, always adapt the CV to the position. That is pretty important.
So that was my question then. It's sort of like not one CV fits all, but always a bit of you have the core and adapt it towards it. Okay.
Yes.
Cover letters, we said about it. Are they necessary? Yes, no? What's important to consider? Ralph is smiling.
Okay, you are not saying anything, right? Then I just go ahead.
I'm a bit out of this one, because that's basically my duty. If I present, I am the cover letter that presents the person to the company. So, but yeah, I mean, Ariane, you have to answer that one. I guess it's still very common here, and then people somehow want it, especially the older generation, I assume. I think everyone else, the younger ones, is fine if you can do it in a smart, elegant, personal way, short way, I suppose. But yeah, it's still common, definitely.
Yeah, it's a supply and demand topic, really. If you are an IT person, you don't need to write a cover letter here.
True.
Because you will find a job without that. They will check your CV if the programming languages, for example, are what you're looking for. You don't need to write a cover letter, really. If you're applying for jobs where you have competition, and you might have, let's say, some disadvantage because maybe the job posting says you need perfect German and your German is only okay-ish or just basic or whatever, then yes, because then you have to get that competitive advantage again, and then a cover letter can make sense. But what makes even more sense is what Ralf also said in the beginning, or that to just call that person, because it makes a huge difference if somebody called me and said, listen, I saw this position and la, 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 and then I have a personal connect, and then later on I see the cover letter and I see the CV, I have an emotional connect, and I have I remember this, right? So do that, and also spend time on the cover letter, yes. But to be very honest, no, it does not tell me how good you will be in the job, but it tells me again how motivated are you, because for a cover letter you need to sit down and really read it and formulate and so on. So it shows your motivation basically.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, I have some more to go back to the speed mode.
Yeah, I just wanted to say we were not very quick.
But I think it's important. Yeah, I think it was important just to get a bit of a feel. I think especially like cover letter, as you said, it really depends a bit on the company. Nowadays, I see on LinkedIn, especially jobs which are like the speed applications that you don't need cover letters. So it really depends a bit on the advertisement about it. And we had a question out of the audience about which platforms you would use for job search here in Germany. So probably you can just mention some that you find are the current relevant ones.
I would say the most used ones are at the moment stepstone.de. We definitely have a lot going on via LinkedIn and Xing, which is a German version of LinkedIn. Xing.de and LinkedIn.de. I bet everyone heard about LinkedIn. Maybe we can post Xing.de later on somewhere here. I think those three is definitely ruling the market.
Agreed.
I just put it in the chat so everyone can see it. Awesome. We had another question regarding AI. So, you know, things are changing. There are more digital processes going on also in recruitment, because we've talked a bit more about the traditional side. So the question, if now, for example, artificial intelligence is screening CVs, what can one do to address it? Or what do you have to have in mind to overcome that hurdle, basically?
I heard from a few companies that do it already, use it. Very important topic again, adapt your CV to the respective position. Otherwise you get sorted out right away if the keywords or the buzzwords are not there. Everything else, I have to admit, it's not that common at the moment. So I hear only a few things here and there, but I think it's just still landing on the HR table and someone has to screen it in person.
Absolutely, because the algorithm is such a black box. We are also really reluctant to use it in that way, and so we at Bosch, at least, people are screening CVs, no algorithm.
Okay, awesome. And we had another question regarding LinkedIn certifications. So nowadays you can do on LinkedIn Learning platform, you can do all sorts of certification. And the question is, would you encourage people to do that? Yes, no, and are they valid? So would you consider them?
It's definitely a nice add-on. I personally don't have that much experience with it, but if it really fits into the whole story, into your message, yes, why not?
Yeah, it's coming, as Ariane mentioned, but it's not such a big factor at the moment. No.
So, but it would be more along the lines that we said earlier around sort of like tell your story, make sure that you sort of like show your motivation. And if you want to change your field, make sure that you have experiences, even if it's not work experience, that sort of like feed into it. And what I see sometimes is then people take like 10 courses and write 10 courses. Then again, that's probably not focusing. So I really try to make things which are relevant also to tell your story, right? Probably to add there. Question from the audience was also around age barrier. So we had someone with a professional experience thinking about an MBA. And if you see that age is actually a hindering factor in finding a good job in Germany right now.
It can be a benefit because of the stuff you have already done. So no, I don't think that at all. No,
I agree. It also depends on the position, on the case every time, of course. But in general, I would say no.
Okay. And we had another question saying if big companies usually send their employees to their countries of origin. So if someone from India comes here, if they would be then moving to India with the company. Is that something which is usual?
It could be if you are interested in it, and then later on you have some position opening up there. But basically, if you're applying here for a local job, no, then you have that local job. So we will not send you anywhere you don't want. And if you want to go back home, of course, it's again the network, right, within Bosch. Then you will know more about opportunities back in your home country. but neither is it a guarantee nor a must.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We had another question regarding timing. So when someone is studying, when should they start to apply for internships? Like what time frame probably does it also take from seeing the advert to getting into the company?
I would say around 3 months, roughly around 3 months in advance. Just start. I mean, you have to find the position first. If you have it, you apply. Ideally, you get information back ASAP, but it can take a week or two, maybe, depending on if there are holidays or whatever, the person is on vacation, etc. So everything can play in that. And then having an interview and everything. And yeah, I think just plan around 3 months.
Yeah, I would agree. The earlier, the better. Because mostly companies are looking for an intern right now, but nobody is really available right now. And if you had a great process and you say, okay, but I can only join then and then they will accommodate to that.
And still, we're talking about an internship that, in worst case, you can probably manage it both for like overlapping both for a few weeks or something. So I think that's not a big deal breaker.
Awesome. I have one last question before we then announce the winners, because I just got the winners written in the chat, so I know who won. But I want to, because we talked about timings now, and I would probably like to hear from you just to understand a bit what is the process of application. What are the steps? Like how many interviews? Like I know that it's not the one, but just to give a bit of a view on how that process would look like, the steps.
Okay, maybe I'll start here. I have a bit more broader view probably. Let's say roughly talk about 2-3 rounds. Beginning with the first one, which has changed a lot. Of course, now during COVID, we use virtual interviews, and I think it's a good thing in the first instance that we just connect the two parties virtually, where it's not the same as in person, of course, which is preferred still, I think, but you can get a good feeling already, especially also the candidate. What we said before, the company has to present themselves as well. But so if any party says like, nah, not for me, then that's fine. And we don't have to travel there. No one has to block like several hours in the calendar. So I think that's always the first step. The second round, maybe with decision maker from that department, and maybe a third one if it's really necessary. But as we're talking about internships or like starting job, I think 2 rounds is realistic.
Agreed.
Awesome, thank you. One very quick question, because I find it interesting. Are internships paid in Germany? Yes, no?
Yes.
Usually, yes.
I'm just thinking, like, are there still companies who are not paying? I don't think so. So yes.
I was about to say yes as well. So
yeah.
Great. Thank you very much. As we're approaching the end, I just want to make sure that the winners know, who got the chance to sort of like get a review from each of you. So thank you very much for making that possible to 2 of our participants today. So the first winner is Mrs. and I hope I pronounced it right, Weishan Chen from Taiwan. Some congratulations. the drums. And the second CV winner is Priyanka Mendirata from India. So congratulations to the 2 of you.
Nice.
We will get in contact with you afterwards via mail, so that we will forward it to Ariane and Ralph, so they will make a check with you. And then from the ones that have been participating in the chat, we also have a winner, and that is Divya Vasin from India. And you will have a career consultation with me. So congratulations there as well. And with that, we end this great session. Thank you very much, the 2 of you. I would normally have done like a final statement, but you've already given so much advice and personal view and so much dedication. Thank you very, very much for joining today. As said, we will record the session, so all of you will get the recording afterwards and can deep dive into all of these great nuggets. Thank you very much for taking your time, and have a great rest of the day. I say goodbye to all over the world, And thanks for joining today.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Bye.